G'day, Bomber fans. Well, this is what you want to hear about. We obviously had that shocker of a game in the AFL, but while that was all going on, back at the hangar, we had our VFL boys go at it, and not gonna lie, watching this did make me feel a bit better about the club. I think it was a pretty damning day for a Mr. Adrian Dodoro, not to bring him up again, apologies. But you had the AFL, a team made up of his work, kind of crumble a bit, while Rose's project players in the VFL all looked really, really good. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the debutants really start rolling out this year. I think most of these guys can play. There are plenty of young players yet to play AFL footy that are doing plenty right to fast-track that debut. So yeah, I really recommend watching the reserves this year. I think it's really important for the future of the club because a lot of these guys are looking really good. And if you can't watch the reserves, just keep up to date with these videos. I'll try and sum each game up as well as I can. But also in saying that, I was watching this at the same time as the AFL, so there may have been some bits I missed out on. But yeah, we're going to go AFL listed player in the VFL player-by-player review. Not really going to recap the game. I may as well just say we got the win over Williamstown. It was a fun and close game of footy, close all the way through, and then we kicked away with a brilliant last term. But yeah, that's all you really need to know. Let's get to the players. Starting with Todd Goldstein. So I think a lot of the expectation around him this year is how he can improve those around him. He's not going to be a player we really focus on that much in the grand scheme of things. It's all about how he helps those and how they learn from him. In saying that, he did have a pretty decent game. He had to do most of the rucking because Vigo Vicentini suspended. So he rucked all day against Tom Downey, who is pretty respected. I reckon Goldstein won that contest. He not only had more of the ball, 14 touches, he had 30 hitouts, 4 clearances. I mean, yeah, it was a pretty good game from a ruckman, too good to be in the VFL. He's not going to be replacing Brian anytime soon, but it is good to see that he can at least run out a game of footy in case we need him at some stage if there's injuries in the AFL. But ideally, he spends the year just doing what he did against Williamstown. Lewis Hayes. Okay, so this is where it gets fun because from here it is young players, pretty much all yet to play footy. They all played well, starting with Lewis Hayes, and he's the best of the lot. This is where we start to sit back and think, is this kid genuinely ready? And better than that, is he worth bringing into the AFL team through a mission? Because usually when debutants play, it's because they're replacing someone that is injured or unavailable in the best 23, and then they have to try and keep their spot from there if they fit in. But the way Lewis Hayes played in the VFL and the way he's played in the VFL in the last few years, it makes you wonder if he could soon start to challenge Zach Reid for his spot in the backline. It would be a massive sign of confidence if it was to happen, and I'm kind of hoping it does. I know that it probably won't, but I think Lewis Hayes proved against Williamstown that he is ready to play. He was really great against that smaller forward line. He was able to play pretty loose because he didn't really have a main goal-scoring threat to be playing on, so that probably helped his performance. There were some players missing. I don't know too much about Williamstown, but I heard it on the broadcast. But Hayes was just everywhere. He was commanding. He was as big a presence as a key defender can be on a match. I mean, 27 touches, most of them kicks, 16 marks, 3 contested. He had the 7 intercepts, but honestly, I thought it was way more than that. I don't even know if that stat is right. I thought he was always getting around the footy when it was coming in. He was having a real say on that game. I'd say he was the best on ground, to be honest, for both teams. I thought he was completely owning the back line. He was playing with so much confidence, and he was pretty handy on ground level too. That's something that I didn't think we'd be seeing too much of this early, but he might be a bit more mobile than some of the options we have in the AFL, or at least he's got more energy about him. I really like his hands on ground level. There are a few times where he would dispatch the ball from the ground, and it would actually result in us going pretty far down the other end of the field, so he's actually doing quite a lot right. And it was a really rounded performance in that regard. But yeah, I mean, I think he deserves a chance soon. I don't think he can play with Reid and Mackay in the AFL. That is too tall. But I think he is, based on this form, he was excellent against Williamstown. He is 100% AFL ready. He really couldn't have done anything more than what he did. It was just a really eye-catching game of footy from Hayes. He was fantastic. Kayle Gerreyn. So this is a guy that I thought probably wasn't in line for a debut anytime soon. I think that his major development needed is with his tank and the way he runs out games. But that does give us a chance to, see him really comfortable and low stress in the VFL, not really trying to win that AFL debut because he's a project player. But what we saw from him in his first game is more than we could have expected. To be honest, when he was drafted, I was expecting pretty low numbers in his first year. I thought he'd take more time to get comfortable because, it's not an easy position to just slide into. New environment, new team, but 3 goals on debut. That is perfect. And it's the way it started as well. He had that really strong contested mark on the 50. I don't think he kicked a goal from it. I think he missed. But you could just tell that he was going to be an issue. And then he went on to find some more space around himself and was really strong in the contest too. Had the 6 marks for the day, 2 contested. But the best thing about this guy is the ball use. This is a very tall player. We drafted a key forward or a ruck who can genuinely kick the footy. And on both sides of his body too. So 12 disposals, but 10 of those were kicks. It's great to be able to trust in a taller player to distribute well. You don't have to run through him for the hand pass. You can see how in a year or two he can start to threaten certain players in our team. It is really interesting drafting from Rosa, and I mean, based on game 1, it's a tick, but there's still a long way in his development to go. Alwyn Davey Jnr. I don't know. I don't know if he was very quiet early, or if I just wasn't paying attention, or if he was rested for the first, part of the quarter. I think he barely touched the ball in that first, or maybe he wasn't on ground much for it. I don't know. Remember though, he was a test to play. He had that surgery over the preseason. He was not even a confirmed starter. I actually thought he was going to get the week off. So just to see him get out on the park and play, that is all that we need. I'm happy enough with that. I'm not expecting heaps from his first game back, and I don't care if he had a bad game. And maybe it was slow to get going, but also, I don't even think he had a bad game. I actually liked him as the game went along. He was definitely a presence around the footy, as you would expect from someone in their 3rd or 4th year, whatever it is. I do apologise, I wasn't really focusing on him as much as the first year players, but I feel like, at least when I saw Davey, he wasn't doing bad things, and that's fine from a first game back. I think all that matters here is that he was on the park and running out a fair chunk of the game after a pretty decent injury layoff. So yeah, good stuff. Let's see how he builds from here. I'm expecting him to challenge for AFL soon, because he had a very good preseason. Luamon Lual, so he was lined up on a wing all day opposite Saad El-Hawli. I liked him. I was a bit surprised to see him listed as the AFL emergency both weeks, but he's kind of proving that he isn't really that far off. I like his movement. He's very fast and very agile, and he uses that to his advantage, whether he's defending and closing space, because, he was applying pretty good heat all day. I still think he really isn't that ideal attacking wingman, but he's getting his hands on the ball more and generating excitement when he had it. That wasn't the case as much last year. I feel like last year he looked a tiny bit lost and didn't have that set position, and I talked about how we needed him to have a set position to build confidence, but now we do have a wingman who's going to play full-time minutes on the wing in the VFL, and I think it's great depth, to be honest, as well, the fact that we have Saad and Lamont both in the resis playing decent footy, and the good thing, either of them can play at any time. They're both in the emergencies list. I think Lamont is already looking a lot better than he did last year. It took him the whole season to kick a goal last year, and this time round he gets one in round 1. An important goal too, by the way. I think from memory, it was the goal that gave us the lead late in the game, so that's cool. But no, yeah, I thought Luamon Lual was good. I don't think he's as close as others to playing AFL right now, but I can see why he's on the emergencies list. There's quite a lot of his game that I really like. There's still a few things he needs to brush up on, though. Angus Clarke, I really like this kid. I was thrilled by this pick after the draft, and I've been so excited to see what he can do this year, and every time he does something, it just impresses me, because the only thing holding him back from playing this year is size. I think in every aspect, aside from those skinny arms, he is ready. He's not AFL strength yet, but what he can do with the ball and how he defends, I think this is a real player here. And he looked very good against Williamstown. The way he gets the ball and just goes, he's always looking to be aggressive. There was that was it Kayle Gerreyn who sat the ball up on his head a bit, and you were thinking, okay, this is a tough kick. He's got to, have a 2-on-1 mark and then, slow to get the game down. But he was so aggressive with taking the mark, and then so aggressive with playing on straight away to drill Goldie in D50. I feel like this is a kid that if he plays AFL, and size obviously matters, but if he plays AFL, when he plays AFL, he's going to start having an instant impact, like we saw with Ridley. I mean, he looks really good. There was also one later. The one that most people will be talking about is where he's kicked to Day-Wicks, where he just gathers the ball, I think, from a Hayes hand pass, and he has a short option to his right. He could slow the game down and just take pressure off himself by picking a short 15-metre pass. But he decides to bite off that long kick, take a little bit longer with the ball, and it was just a picture-perfect kick to Day-Wicks inside 50. I think Day-Wicks might have scored from that as well. So, I mean, yeah, he is showing plenty already, Angus Clarke. He is doing so much right. People aren't just calling for his debut because he's young and they want to see him. I genuinely think he's looking really good. I think at some stage this year we're going to see him in the AFL, which is very exciting because that's the second time I've said that in about a player this young in the video. But we do need to see him grow a bit. And I don't know if his size is the only thing holding him back right now. But that is, pretty promising if the fact that all he needs to do to play good AFL footy is to put on some muscle. I think this is a real player. I really like Angus Clarke. He looked great against Williamstown. Rhys Unwin, I feel like he was a bit quieter than I expected. I think he was the one that quite a few are holding out hope for with an early debut. I thought he was okay. He definitely floated in and out of the game, and that is tough on a forward because the ball was around our back half quite a lot. We were setting up plays from there, and it was pretty quick over the head. He was never a constant like, guys like Clarke or Hayes or Johnson, but he had some good pressure-based moments inside 50, some good tackles for the day. 4 is handy for a skinny little kid, and I really liked that he was the one who stood up late and kicked us through with the win. We pretty much sealed the deal off his boot, which was promising. He had a moment where he needed to step up and go back from 50-odd to kick the goal, and he looked so calm in doing so. His first goal for the day and for the club. So yeah, I thought that was cool. He didn't have a standout game. He was probably one of the quieter AFL players, one of the quieter I'll talk about in this video. But in the end, his moment was the one that sealed it for us. So even when he's having not a down day, but he was far from bad. But even when he's a tad quiet, we can still trust him to live up to the moment. So that is cool. Gee, this video is getting me very hyped, guys. Zak Johnson, this is another one we really need to be keeping a close eye on. I think this kid is almost the most exciting of the lot in these last few weeks. Since that surgery and that long rehab, he has been brilliant. His first official VFL game, he just kept going as usual. He didn't full-on star like he did in the practice matches, but he was a real presence moving the footy in the defensive half of the field. So he had the 21 disposals, most of which were kicks. He went at 85% by foot, and that isn't surprising if you know him. He's a really lovely user of the footy, just a naturally gifted kick, and that is why many are really excited about him. And for me, it's not even the fact that he's not that player that bites off good passes and opens up play like we see with Merritt. It's not that type of ball use. It's more the fact that he is just extremely reliable. You can trust him with a lead. There is never really danger when he's using the footy for the most part. Obviously, he's young and prone to 1 or 2 mistakes a game. He is human, but you never feel uneasy watching him at all. He was so calm for most of the game, even when he did make a mistake. I think back to the second term where he went on a little run from a kick out and missed the pass, which ended up going back over his head. That didn't come from a rush of blood or anything. It was just a skill error. He is very calm, very collected. I think the only thing going against him right now is his defensive output. There are a few times where his direct opponent had the better of him. I feel like he's not a natural defender of the footy, but very promising with it. So we just need to get him familiar with the art of defending a bit more at a higher level, something he's probably at the wrong club for, to be honest. Saad El-Hawli, I thought he showed plenty early. I didn't see him as much as the game went on. I don't know if he copped a knock or something, or maybe the coaches, they saw the score at the MCG and decided to put him on ice so he was fresh for a debut against Port. Wink, wink. I don't know. But when he was involved in the game on the wing, I thought he looked at home as usual. He was providing energy opposite Luamon. I thought his wing was probably the stronger of the two while they were both going at it pretty consistently. But yeah, maybe he just drifted out of the game. Maybe there was a knock. I apologise. I didn't really see or hear because I was just so focused on the other rookies of the team. So if you know, let me know down below, because I thought he was quite involved early and was either not playing or drifted late. But yeah, no worries here whatsoever. Either way, we know he's going to tear up more games and play AFL at some stage too. On to next week. Jayden Nguyen, I really like the way this kid goes about it. I don't know if he's ever going to be a player. When you're a Cat B rookie, there is uncertainty, but you also have all the time in the world to prove yourself. So yeah, I'm kind of just enjoying the way Nguyen goes about it for now. He's very small, but his center of gravity makes him really hard to beat on ground level, and he goes in harder than most too. He's a really tough kid. I love the energy he provides in defense. And was he great by foot? Not really. He had a few poor moments. The one I think back on is where he didn't rush it through for a behind and ended up turning it over for a goal over his head in defense. But that is good to be happening to a player this early in their career. You want moments like that to happen in their first or second game. You want them to get moments like that in their head so they know not to do them again. It is all learning this early. But also, there were times where we saw him really take the game on, and especially early, he was having a real impact. So yeah, really good signs from his first match, to be honest. There was plenty of good. There was some bad, but the bad is, you know, in the grand scheme of things, actually good because he's going to learn from it. So yeah, he's played with our VFL before. He played a game with us last year, so he's familiar with the team. But yeah, the 17 touches, mostly kicks. Can't say he wasn't involved. And finally, Archer Day-Wicks. Now, there have been some rumours about him making his debut this week, and that is very interesting because he's only just come off surgery not that long ago. I don't know how legit that is, but we'll see, I guess. But no, I thought he was another one who was really promising. He's clearly such an aware player, and although he's versatile, I think he's destined to be a forward. That finish from the 50 arc, that was so pure. He's got a really nice left foot kick, and he's clearly a confident kick for goal, which is good. His first and only goal was from a set shot from about 50 out on a tricky angle, and it came from a really hard lead that was honoured by some great ball movement up the field too. So yeah, I also thought, whereas about 80% of the players in this video were defensive half players getting plenty of the ball rebounding, Day-Wicks was one of a few who primarily did his work in the forward half of the field, and he was doing very dangerous things with the footy when he had it. So yes, he had just 11 touches, but I feel like most of what he did was pretty good. I will say, I personally do think there are others ahead of him, more deserving of a debut. You've got Saad, Clarke, Johnson, Hayes, Unwin, or maybe not Unwin. It's close between those two. But, you know, the fact that Day-Wicks is being considered, apparently being considered, it just means that there are going to be quite a lot of new players this year, because all those other guys I just spoke of before, they're probably a chance to play too. So yeah, really good start for Day-Wicks in his career at Essendon. Not an amazing game, but he had some good moments. He was involved a lot early, creating a fair bit. So yeah, good stuff. And that is that. That was a fun way to forget about the Crows game. We're finally seeing Matt Rose's boys go at it, and so far, so good. You got to love the way we approach the draft, because these kids, they look like they could be real players for us. And maybe this is where we got to start looking and focusing our attention on this year. Not obviously more on the AFL, but these guys are going to be playing AFL footy soon, I reckon, most of them. So watch the VFL if you can. Keep an eye on Zak Johnson, on Angus Clarke, guys like that. There are plenty going around. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new. Let me know what you think down below. Who did you like from the VFL? And go Bombers.